Lifeboat Live, we have 4 simple rules. Number 1, we don't discuss politics, ever. Number 2, this is not a religious channel, and while you might hear people say, God bless you, or I'm going to pray for you, or I wouldn't have gotten through this without my faith, that's fine. What's not fine is to say, my God is better than your God, or here's why you're not getting into heaven. It's not going to fly. Number 3, we believe wholeheartedly if you can't control your tongue, then you can't control your life. So while on board, there's not going to be any cursing in the live chat, period. And number 4, there is no room for mean people on the lifeboat. Because we discuss very sensitive things from people's past in our group setting, we got to protect those people. The only way they feel confident and comfortable discussing those things is in an environment that is free of trolls and mean people. So if you're a mean person or you're a troll, we're going to block you for life. And if your account happens to be less than 24 hours old, we're probably a little suspicious right from the word go. Why? Well, because there are people in this world who enjoy being cruel solely for the sake of being cruel. It's not going to fly here. But if you're here because you're trying to get sober and live your best life, then you might find that the lifeboat is just that, a lifeboat. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and we will see you on deck. Hey everybody, I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and you're on the lifeboat. Well, I hope that everybody had a good day. Let me tell you a little bit about mine. I had a good day, and again, I want to thank everyone that has been reaching out to me. I got a very cool email that actually got a link sent to me by a couple of different people, and I thank you, concerning National Fentanyl Awareness Day, which is coming up. I love the fact that people have reached out to me with that, because it says that they're involved. That's not something that just popped up in your inbox. If you got that, it's because you obviously are aware of what's going on, and you've asked to be put on a few lists and things like that. And that just, that warms my heart. It really does. Oh, let me see if I can silence this phone, because if not, sorry, people, but I'm going to silence this puppy, or it is going to do this nonstop. And I'll tell you why in a minute. Yeah, here we go. Let's mute this thing. There we go. Here you go. Perfect. So the reason that the phone is going off, we'll get to that in a second. But as I told everybody on yesterday and the day before show, I cannot file my probation report. Right. And this is frustrating at a level that I can't explain, because I've done nothing wrong on probation for so long, but not getting your probation report in is not a good thing. It basically makes it look like you're doing something wrong. And in days of yore, right, in my past incarnation as Tommy, I probably would have lost my mind about this, especially since I have to contact them in order to try to find out what's wrong. And that, that can stress you out. And it's just one of those situations that has the potential to be stressful. So today I thought, this is it. I went yesterday and there was nobody in the office, and I sat there for a while. And my probation officer, as I've probably mentioned in the past, is, he's a government employee. And if you've heard me talk about government employees in the past, then you know what I mean by that, right? This is not a guy that is Johnny on the ball. And I think he enjoys his time off. Let's put it that way. And now there's also a chance that he watches the lifeboat. So there's a chance that he could be hearing me say that about him. I know that he has seen the lifeboat in the past, but I went down there today to try to get all of this worked out. And I walked in and asked for him, and this time there was somebody there to talk to me, and they said, no, he is not in, and he won't be. And I said, oh, has he got the day off? They said, no, he has the rest of his life off. I said, how is that? They said, he is retired. Now, in true government form, he didn't mention to me that he was retiring. He didn't mention to me that that would mean that there will be a new person handling my case. But I said, so that's kind of a problem for me, sir, because now I have no idea who I report to. And obviously that can create a bit of a stressful situation, when you don't know who your officer is. So is there any chance you could go and look that person up? So I sat and filled out my report in ink, because their system obviously has no desire to allow me to do it in the high tech, format. So I filled this thing out, and he came back and he gave me the person's name. I won't mention the person's name, but it is now a woman. And I said, well, is there any chance that she's in the office so that I can just touch base with her and introduce myself and things of that nature? And he said, well, I do believe that she is in the office today, but her office is in Las Vegas. I am in Reno. For those of you who are not aware of the size of the state that I live in, quite often people assume that Reno and Las Vegas are near one another. They are not. In fact, I could not be any farther north in Nevada without being in California. I am, without exaggeration, pretty much on the border of California and Nevada. So I said, this is going to make stopping in to see this person somewhat difficult. And he said, yes, it absolutely will. He said, but the caseload that your previous officer had, of everybody in the caseload, they were all assigned to someone here in town except for you and one other individual. You two were assigned to somebody in Las Vegas. And I said, well, that's, not particularly convenient. And he said, well, the good news is, I'm guessing they're not too concerned about either of you. And I can't tell you, people, how much that warms my heart. I have never been the kind of person that a probation officer was not too concerned about. And it really sort of hammers home the point I was making on the last show concerning going to the worst possible case scenario as opposed to going to the best possible case scenario. And in this particular situation, this is about the best possible case scenario. I mean, there is literally no one in town to stop by and see me. And I'm not doing anything that would make that fun. It's not like, oh, look what I can get away with, because there's really nothing that I do that I could be getting away with. But it does say an awful lot about the fact that no one's concerned about what I'm doing. And that, people, is a feeling that I can't explain. You know what I mean? The level of joy that I have knowing that I was one of two that just quite simply they're not concerned about. It says an awful lot. And I wanted to brag. I said to the guy, well, let me tell you what I've been doing. You know what I mean? And he said, well, no, you've obviously been doing great. And then sort of just walked off and left me there. So I didn't even get a chance to do a good brag session about the lifeboat or anything else. But that was one of the stories that happened today. And I'm sorry, I'm adjusting something.
Did your anxiety level just like drop to the floor?
Yeah, well, I mean, and I'll be honest. I talked to one of my best friends, and I were on the phone. I had it on speakerphone as I was driving down, and this person said, "You're not bummed out or freaked out about this, are you?" And I said, "No." And I'm being perfectly honest. I'm not. I'm a little frustrated because it's cutting into things that I could be doing. And I've got a lot going on right now. And it's kind of just, chunking up time. But no, I'm not, like I said yesterday, there's just nothing that I've done that could cause them to freeze out my account. I would guess that the reason my account was freezed out is because there's nobody there anymore to babysit it. I think that that's probably the reason that this account was shut down. It was a way they had of guaranteeing you would come into the office if you have your stuff together. My guess is that the lion's share of people are just now probably hiding. I mean, honestly, that's what I would have done. The previous me right now would probably be on the run thinking that they were after me, but I just drove straight down to the office. But there was no concern, but although there was no anxiety level, the level of joy, like I literally like skipped out of that office, big smile for all of the guards. My office is in the federal courthouse, right? So this is where, all the bad stuff happened to me. This is the sentencing and, all of the things. Now, by way of full disclosure, I never walked through the front door. I used to come through a little, basement entrance when they pulled in the prison van or the jail van. But so on top of this, I get today, I told you over the weekend, I had a really good weekend. I sold a lot of watches, and I sold a lot of watches that were very, very expensive. It was a really good day for my business. This morning, shortly around the same time, I get contacted by the credit card processing company to say, well, we're concerned about fraud on one of these processes because it's about this big. And again, it was just one of those things where this should have been a meltdown. I should have been thinking, good Lord, right? I don't know where this guy lives. I pulled calmly over to the side of the road and said, no, not happening. And why are you idiots contacting me? I said, you're a credit card company. Let me explain to you how this stuff works, right? Contact the guy with the credit card and ask him if he has a problem with the transaction, And he said, well, can you identify the guy? I said, yeah, I can tell you his name. I can tell you where he lives. I can tell you what he bought. I can tell you that he is 5'7" with curly hair and an earring in his right ear, right? I can tell you his wife's name. We sat and talked for about 45 minutes before he bought this watch. But I really am trying to make a point for the rest of my time on this planet to basically bring into my existence the best case scenario. And I have come to believe wholeheartedly that, and I'm not talking about stuff like, like The Secret and things of that, or maybe I am, I don't know. Normally I would say that I'm not one to buy in too much to the manifesting great things, but I think there is probably something to that. When I lived my life thinking the worst all of the time, it used to happen pretty consistently. Now, anybody logical would sit back and go, yeah, well, during that time, though, you were also living like an idiot. So what comes first, the chicken or the egg, right? I mean, if you live like an idiot, you probably should expect the worst that's going to happen because you have a bag of dope in your pocket and you're wasted and you're stealing and, obviously bad stuff is going to happen. But the point of that is that, it's like my father's advice, do good and fear not. If you're doing everything right, then there is no reason to paint the worst possible case scenario. And this trickles down to everything, people. It really does. This trickles down to absolutely every part of your life. It's one of those situations that can greatly affect your sobriety. How are you attacking your new life? Do you walk through your new walk with sobriety with doom and gloom, waiting for the next shoe to drop? Or are you expecting every day to bring something fantastic into your life? Because I think, and I'm watching this play out on a day-to-day basis, I really believe that the choice that you make in terms of what you're expecting, I promise you're going to get it. Yeah. I promise you. If you expect the best will come. And when last night, I don't know what possessed me to do this, people. I really don't. But last night, I watched 4 or 5 episodes of the Lifeboat from a million years ago, right? From the beginning of the show. I think it had something to do with something that my brother told me once. He said, you're going to get to a point where you're going to look back on some of your early shows and go, boy, I was awful at this. Right. You know what I mean? Like I just really didn't have this down. I may have thought I did, but I was really bad at this. And I came from a slightly different, walk than my brother did. We did a lot of sales. I did it in the front of the room. He did the percentage of what he did on the telephone, but I used to do public speaking. So I was pretty accustomed to having people listen to you and sort of stare at you. And I thought, no, I don't think it'll be the same for me. And there is a little something to that. I watched some of the early shows and was not wildly impressed with some of the stuff that I did.
They weren't horrible though. I mean, you could tell.
No, they were definitely, they were never horrible.
You could speak.
I could always speak. But I think what the big difference was that in the beginning I was speaking, in the beginning I had 7 years, to think about what I was going to say the first time I had an opportunity to talk to people. And, after you do about 100 of them, right, or 150 of them or whatever, you're no longer running off of that tank that you had of things that you had thought of. Instead, you're really speaking to the audience. Right now, I'm talking to the crew, and a lot of the shows that I'm doing, almost all of them, come from emails that I get from you guys. Right, so. You guys and gals, I get emails. People say to me, you say guys as if it's everybody. That's just a Northeast thing, right? You guys, it could be 20 women and we'll say, what are you guys doing?
A little insight though, just for that, what you just said there, guys, just so you understand what he's saying. He'll send me a topic, Tommy, 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon? Usually. Yeah. That's when we decide on our topic, guys. And now there's a few that we get prepared for, like bigger ones or whatever that we're going to be talking about. But for the majority, we try to listen to what you guys are saying and what's going on in your lives and our lives at the same time. So
no, that really is how it goes down. And then he whips together a thumbnail and we go from there. But these days, the majority of the subject matter is, comes directly from things that are going on in your lives or things that are because of what's going on in your lives, it's going on in our lives and that kind of thing. But one of the things that jumped out at me when I watched those shows is, these days I hold up a cat in a basket, right? But in the very beginning, one of the things that I used to say at the end of the shows was, the best is yet to come. It was because it was one of those things that when I was locked up, I had a guy that used to say it to me every day. He'd go, man, don't trip on this crap. The best is yet to come. When you get out of here, that's when, the best is yet to come. Your best days are in front of you, not behind you. And, I think if you live your life in such a way that you really truthfully believe that your best days are in front of you, they will be. But and for people in recovery, it really is a disease. When you start looking back and going, you know what? I had life. Life was good. I was living great. I had a car. I had a girl. Right? I had some money in my pocket. And then drugs came into my life. Or then I got out of control of my drinking. Or, then I started to experiment. Or whatever, brought you to that place where you needed to quit. Right? It could become a disease. It's that back there syndrome. Right? Boy, things were so good back there. And what I got to do is try to get back there, right? I got to try to get back to where I was. If the purpose of getting sober is to try to get back to where you were before you got addicted, I'm not sure that that's a great ball plan, right? I honestly don't think that's something that pans out well. I think, we're never the same, people. We really are never the same. Once you've been through this ride, once you are able to, to slay the beast that is addiction, you're going to be a different version of yourself. And I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. I know that, where I'm at today, this is the best version of me that has ever been. This is a better version of me than I was, prior to addiction. This is, and we've talked about this a lot on a lot of the shows, and it's something that comes up a lot because in the beginning, I would say things like, I hope that the lifeboat shows the rest of the world that addicts are as good as everybody else, that we're not, defective. And although I don't think everybody should go out and get a drug habit to make themselves better human beings, there are definitely some aspects to people in recovery that are better than others. And I'm sorry, but that's just the truth. You're not going to go through something as difficult as drug addiction and then pop out on the other side and be jaded, right? Or be hateful or spiteful. Today is today was just such a wild day for me in terms of the lifeboat in my life. But as I was leaving the federal courthouse, as I was getting back into my car, there was a guy panhandling nearby, and the older version of me just would have looked at this guy a whole lot different than I did today. I didn't go to the normal, there was for a very long period of my life, I would have just mocked this guy, not out loud. I've never been that guy, but in my head, I would have been like, bum, right? Or look at this dude. And my first thought was, you know what? There's probably either mental illness or drug addiction driving this. I don't think the average person ends up out panhandling unless there's, those are the two driving factors so often that I can't look at people the same way anymore. When I look at people who are suffering through any bad situation, my first thought is always, boy, I'll bet you there's some drugs in there somewhere, right? I'll bet you that, to get to a point where you can, to say, hey, do you have any money? I can have, requires somebody to really drop the pride that we're born with. It really you have to bring yourself to a really tough place in order to be able to do that. And I don't think that place just comes on naturally. I think that that's something that's usually fueled by drug addiction, and very often mental illness as well. But mental illness and drug addiction go hand in hand so often. There are so many of us in recovery that
I think it's a process,
Yeah, absolutely. Right. I mean, how many people, Mark, are using drug addiction drugs as a way to try to treat mental illness? People who are self-medicating, these are people that just don't feel right. And then one day they do blow, or one day they do, pills, and for that brief moment.
It's funny you said that, because Lewis Clark, I'm not sure if I've met him or not, or her. He's struggling with cocaine.
Coke's a tough drug. I've done a lot of it in my life. It's a really difficult drug. And here's the thing with cocaine. If we were doing this show in the late 80s and the early 90s, I mean, everybody on the show would be struggling with cocaine, and for those of a specific age, right? We watch this stuff, come in and then go out, and then come in and go out. And I remember, there was a period back a while ago, and when I was doing heroin, I was doing a lot of coke too. I used to do speedballs. That was kind of my thing. And the coke was terrible. It got to a point in this country where what they were bringing in was just garbage. And because of that, I think it kind of fell off. And recently the business model has changed. And these days they're doing everything within their power to just bring in the best of everything. Yeah. They're not bringing in stuff that's jumped all over anymore. They're bringing in a much better product. I think there's a great book, if you ever get a chance to read it. It's from a man named Sam Quinones, who he worked for a couple of the major news outlets. I think he was not an anchor, but one of those people that goes out on locations or whatever. But he wrote a book called Wonderland, I believe is the name of the book. It's but he talks about the origins of the opioid epidemic, and the amount of research that he did going into this book is just staggering. And the way he writes it from the point of view where he traces people who are smuggling drugs across the border, and then the people who are using them in the U.S. And he sort of goes the juxtaposition back and forth between, those two parties. But, he talks to a guy who basically says, we wanted to become Domino's Pizza. We wanted to make the ability to get drugs really, really convenient. And they really attacked it as a business model. And this is why we're seeing what we're seeing now in the US. Drug dealers got smart. they looked at people and said, the guys that really can afford this drug have to drive to a part of town that they don't want to go to buy this drug. So if they can call one phone number and have the stuff delivered to them in 10 minutes in their nice little neighborhood, then they'll probably buy it. And I think this is, one of the things that's really driving not just the opioid epidemic, but the uptick in drug abuse across the board. And
doesn't it like hit more demographics also?
I'm sorry?
Wouldn't it hit more demographics that way also?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, and like 802 is on here, the guy from my home state. And I know I've said this so often, you guys are getting sick of hearing it, but when I moved from my home state, they had never had a heroin bust. I mean, it's hard to wrap your brain around, right?
That's crazy.
And he comes out now and says that, he sees overdoses in Johnson. People, if you know how small Johnson is, like if you could see the town he's talking about, there is no city in Vermont. They talk about the biggest city being a place called Burlington, but the town that I live in is 5 Burlingtons, and I live in the little city, right? We're famous for being a little city. Vermont, this is not a joke or a punchline or anything else, but there are more cows in that state than there are people. It is a very, very small state population wise. And because of that, it was kind of insulated from a lot of the big city stuff. As much as I abused drugs growing up, crack was something that, we read about and we heard about it, but there was nobody selling crack. There was nobody. Right. It never got to that. I'm sure now there is. I guarantee you now there is, because the business model has changed. Back in the day, you sort of went to a certain part of town, and in that part of town, these days, and I've told the story many times, when I was addicted to heroin, I would call a phone number, and within 10 minutes, the delivery driver would meet me somewhere. And the dispatch I was calling had 4 or 5 drivers. So, they were always within 10, 15 minutes away from you. And there have been so many times where, like, I remember once driving into a 7-Eleven and I looked across the street and I said to Jack, well, I don't think we're going to get anything. And he's like, why? I said, because that's our guy. And they had him on the side of the road, with it leaning over the hood of a car while they handcuffed him. And I said, well, there's that. And Jack was like, nah, call the guy. He'll have one of his other dispatchers come. And I called the number and he said, don't call this number ever again, and hung up. And I said, man, we are screwed. He's like, oh no. 2 minutes later, my phone rang and it was a number I hadn't seen. And I picked it up and he was like, hey, this is the new number. Where are you at? And people, it was that fast. You know what I mean? Like they got busted. They threw out the phone. I assure you, they didn't go buy one. Right, the speed at which this happened. So they had a burner ready to go. They had another phone ready to go, new number. And, these guys would say, if you give my number out to somebody else, here's the code. And each person would have a different code. So this guy knew when he said, Tommy sent me, well, Tommy's got a code. The code was correct. I'd get free stuff. These guys are marketing, they're marketing their product.
They're selling it. Yeah.
Really, they have elevated drug dealing to a sort of an art form. And one of the things that Sam Quinones came across in this book too, is they said, if you crack open a Pepsi and you drink it, you're never going to go, oh boy, that was a bad Pepsi. Right. And he said they wanted to become the Pepsi of drug dealing. They wanted the product to be the same every single time you got it. And they continued to make it stronger and stronger and stronger. And it wasn't so much because, it was good for business. But what happened is when they saw this business model work, another little cell would pop up right next to them and compete. 2 of their drivers would quit and they would start handing out numbers. So if you had 5 people all doing the same thing, the only way you could make yourself better than the next driver was to make sure you got there in under 10 minutes. Well, if everyone's getting there in under 10 minutes, then you needed to bring a better product to market, right? So they would bring a stronger product. And it's just gotten to the point where, the prices keep going down because they're trying to compete, and the product keeps getting better and they can deliver it faster and faster. And you've got the perfect storm, which is really where we're at now. And I do digress something viciously. I apologize.
Hey,
but it is the lifeboat, is it not?
Well, but it applies. It's applicable.
No,
You know?
No, and it absolutely does. I mean, it definitely applies. But people, this was the life that that I was trapped in, and it's a life that so many people currently are trapped in. But the mantra that I used to drop at the end of each show, that your best days are ahead of you. It's not a cliche, and it's not an empty or a hollow promise. I'm here to tell you right now that the only impediment to living your best life is addiction. It really is. I'll tell you, a funny thing happened today too. I told you this has been one of those days. I got an email that said, if you don't pay the outstanding fee that we've been trying to get you to pay, we're going to have to send you to collections. You're going to love this. If you've been on the boat a long time, this one's going to slay you. The bill apparently that I'm not paying is from a college in Florida that I was apparently attending online, and the Zen kind of calmness that it required for me to not viciously curse in the email that I sent back to these people. I just wanted to go nuts. Are you kidding? You didn't accept me after claiming to accept me. I have never attended one course. And the crazy thing is, like I said, if you've been on the boat, you'll laugh at this because I've already done this once, right? Last semester we did this. They actually took the money off of a credit card, and I had to fight to get the money back and everything else. Now they're telling me I owe them for this semester. I didn't attend any semester, but that was another perfect example, people, of, you guys remember the show. I came on here. I remember Mark right before I went live saying, "Man, are you sure you want to do this tonight?"
Yeah.
Because your head's not in the best place. My head was in an awful place. I got so excited for what my future held, and I knew exactly what it is I wanted to do. And you know what? If I had done that, I would have missed out on one of the great opportunities of all time. Like, I've never been happier, and I'm making a living doing what I love and working for myself. And I would have missed that. I promise you, this would not have happened. And the cliches that people get tired of hearing: every time a door closes, another one opens. You know what? That's not a cliche. Well, it is a cliche, but it's a cliche because there's so much truth to it, people.
Yep.
There really is. Every single time something slams on you, instead of looking down at the ground, which is what we do, when that door slams and you look down, you're not going to see the next one that opens. I mean, that's the moral of the story. It really is. When something slams in your face and you feel like life is just kicking the crap out of you, that's when you stand up a little taller and you start looking around, because the next opportunity will be there. But the only way it's gonna be a part of your life is if you see it. And if you're staring at the ground and doing the woe is me thing, I never pick on anybody. I don't. Everyone on the boat I love, and I'm not just saying that. Even the ones who pick on me, and there's a few of you that do. I saw a couple of really funny comments, a couple of shots taken at me on one of the last videos. But honestly, I don't care, people. I love you guys, I really do. But I occasionally get emails from some of you that you come on and you list the 25 things that are just so bad in your life that there's no way you can get sober. And I never want to come across as a jerk, but I know that there's a couple of you who are thinking right now, I know exactly what he's about to say, because you sent that email and you got this response back. It's one thing to unload because you don't want the stuff weighing you down. You should get it off your chest and you should tell someone about it. But if I get 3 emails in a row like that, that's not getting it off your chest. That's dwelling on it. That's making a list of all of the good reasons to get high, right? And we're so good at this. Make a list of all of the reasons that getting sober is just not going to be able to be possible. Well, if you had what I'm dealing with, you'd be getting high too. What you do is you unload that stuff. The purpose of that is to get it out of your life, not to bring it up again and again and again, right? We don't need really good excuses to get high, but we dig them, don't we? I mean, we love a good excuse, and I did it, people. I'm not here saying, I'm holier than thou. I've said this many times when when my first ex-wife kicked me out of my daughter's life. It became my that was my ace in the hole. That was the trump card, right? So that when someone would say, well, yeah, I'm partying, but I got this going on, I'd say, they stole my daughter from me. Like, I'm not even allowed to, she doesn't even know I exist. They stole my kid.
Right.
And then I get high. Right. And that was my, my favorite of all of my excuses, but that's all it was. I mean, honestly, what I should have been doing that entire time was going, you know what? A day is coming where I'm going to see that kid. And when that happens, I'm going to be bulletproof. I'm going to make everyone that tried to shove me out of this child's life wish that they hadn't. They're going to look and go, damn, what did we do? That should have been my goal. Yep. And you know what's funny is that throughout that whole time, right? This happened when my daughter was closing in on 3. And I used to say, I'm showing up at her high school graduation. I'm going to have my life in order. I'll be doing well, but I'm showing up at that graduation. I didn't think I would have had a chance to speak to her. I thought I was going to have to sort of walk up to her at that graduation and introduce myself, but I wasn't going to miss it. And it's coming up in June. And, but I'm on the list. I gotta, she's only allowed to invite a certain number of people, and I am on that list.
Heck yeah,
so man. Yeah, very cool. Right.
That's
and,
awesome.
Yeah. And the best part is I'm going to show up sober.
Uh-huh.
I wish I had gotten sober 10 years earlier, but the wish thing is just as non-productive as let me tell you all the good reasons why I'm still getting high list. Right. Boy, if I had only done this 10 years ago. Yeah.
Well, being wishful and being hopeful is two different things.
You know what, Mark? That's a great point.
I mean, because that oftentimes people kind of lump that to kind of together. Just because you're wishing for something doesn't necessarily mean it's the best thing for you. Right? It really does. I mean, and what you said earlier, what comes about, however it all comes down, really is, glass half full versus glass half empty kind of thing. And I do want to point out, though, Lewis was asking earlier, he's going through the cocaine addiction there, if you had any advice, early on, if there's anything he can do to kind of tame that out. I don't know. I don't know much.
Tame out the coke?
Just kind of tame out the withdrawal things and the stuff that he's going through.
Here's the great thing about cocaine, if there's any such thing as a great thing about cocaine. The withdrawals from coke, and before you start wanting to hate me, hear out my entire paragraph, because I've been there. The best thing about withdrawal from cocaine is, number one, it isn't going to kill you, and number two, as much as it hurts, and there will be physical pain, believe it or not, people, if you've never withdrawn from cocaine, there is absolutely real physical pain, but it is not real physical pain, right? It truthfully is. And I understand this probably as well, if not better than anybody. Right. The difference between psychosomatic pain and real pain is that real pain involves trauma, right? Like if you were to take a hammer and whack yourself on the thumb with it, that is a trauma-induced pain. Everybody understands that, right? Okay. Well, your brain can send the same chemical impulse so that you feel the exact same thing as the hammer hitting your thumb, even though there's no hammer there, right? That is psychosomatic pain. They often refer to it as fake pain, which is not a really cool term, because you know what? If you're blindfolded, you don't know that you didn't get hit in the thumb with a hammer. It feels the exact same, right? So the pain is very real. The good news is there's no underlying trauma. And when pain is caused by something other than trauma, then there are things that you can do to make those things go away. And there are a whole host of gurus, so to speak, out there that can walk you through that entire process. And one, don't laugh, but Anthony Robbins, right? Tony Robbins, the motivational speaker, had a vicious cocaine habit. I don't know if you know that, but he had a vicious addiction to cocaine. And he does a lot of talking about some of the things that he did in order to sort of get that beat. But as far as easy advice that I would give you right now, one of the things that everyone does, whether it's cocaine or whether it's heroin or any drug, when you start to go into that "I'm not doing this anymore" stage of the recovery, right? That first 72 hours obviously is really going to be rugged, because that's during that first 72 hours, the coke is leaving your body. Whatever drug you're on is leaving your body, right? For the first 72 hours, you still got some in there. And I realize you do a line, you're high for half an hour, right? Then you got to do another line. But that drug is going to stay in your system for 72 hours and is going to be having a physical and a psychological effect for that entire 72 hours. Doesn't mean you're flying high. Doesn't mean you're wide awake, grinding your teeth, getting a drip, all the stuff you're used to, but it is still in your system. At the end of that 72 hours, it's gone. And that fourth and fifth day are maybe not as bad, but they're bad, right? So the first 5 days are ugly. And what do? Everybody does the exact same thing. When we decide we're going to quit, we basically allow our butt to grow roots on the couch or the bed, right? We don't get up, whether it's from the couch or laying down, but the last thing in the world you're going to do is get up. You're just going to lay there and you're going to wallow. I mean, there's no other way to put it. If you sit on a couch for 3 days or you lay in bed for 3 days, I promise you there will only be one thought during that entire 3-day time that you're going through this. And that thought will be, boy, do I want to get high, right? As hard as it is, get up, take a shower, right? Do things that no one else does, right? During recovery. And during that initial kick period, and you will honestly find that it's basically you sending a message to your brain that, you know what? I'm not buying it, right? I know that everything you're sending down the pike right now is pain with one reason and one reason only. You want me to do a line, or you want me to smoke it, or you want me to do whatever it is that you're fighting. You're basically stepping up to that part of your brain and going, let's do this, right? You get up, you get outside, you change the scenery. It's amazing what that will do. Get outside, get a little air in your lungs. I don't care how hard it hurts. Walk 200-300 yards and you will feel, your body starts to go, uh-oh, we're having problems. And anytime your body goes, uh-oh, we're having problems, it responds by sending down endorphins. So the more that you're already hurting from the blow or whatever it is in the first place, when you get out and start moving through there, your body goes, this isn't good. And the endorphins start coming down. And endorphins are just, right, that's Mother Nature's painkiller. Exactly. So if you're in pain, what you need to do is start bringing on endorphins. And one of the best ways to do that is to make sure you don't sit in one spot and lay down and do all of that. And I know that I'm telling you something that's hard as hell, but this is a fact. And I had a taskmaster, for real, while I was going through this, he was like, give me 5 push-ups. Yeah. I was throwing up, people. Yeah. Q was a vicious.
Q had you going, man.
I told you, I wanted to kill him. When I talk about Q and how much I love the guy, I'm looking through the rearview mirror. Yeah. When it was going on, I bet. I honestly, there were periods of time where I would fantasize about killing the guy because he was just, but I wasn't his first patient.
Right. He knew.
You know what I mean?
He knew what was up.
He was smart enough to know that if he could get me up and get me out of the cell and start walking around and doing things that it wasn't gonna go away. Right. You know what I mean? I had a physical addiction. I was going to vomit. I was going to, have problems with my bowels. All of that is part of the heroin kick. But
a good thing about endorphins, too. A good thing about the endorphins you were talking about, when that releases, it releases to your whole body. It's not just in one spot, guys. So you get that. It's all over. So if you're getting pain here, that's why when people eat the peppers, like your brother Johnny, that's why that helps his back pain and his neck pain. That's why that all helps from eating peppers.
Absolutely.
So,
and you know what else, people, is that when we take pain meds, or when we take any drug, the pain meds, because it mirrors endorphins so nicely, you go straight up, you plateau for about an hour, and then you go straight down. And that is not what happens with endorphins. This is Mother Nature. That's right. You go up and then you level out, and it stays that way for a really long time. And along those same lines, if you can handle it, You would be shocked what a Carolina Reaper will do for you.
Yeah.
Right? You're gonna go through about 7 to 9 minutes of the worst pain you've ever felt in your life. Trust me, I've eaten them, a lot of them. But there are natural triggers to bring on endorphins on this planet that are next to nothing. And if you've ever eaten a Carolina Reaper pepper, or if you've ever eaten a tube of terror or done any kind of heat challenges, your brain literally thinks, well, I've never seen this before. It's going to kill us, right? Like
Right.
the brain literally has never felt that particular kind of pain coming through taste buds, and it dumps everything it's got. Like that endorphin dump is
Huge.
the first time my brother Johnny would tell me about this all the time. And I was locked up, and he would say, no, you'd be really surprised what this feels like. Not when it's burning, but when he's like right in the middle of the burn where you think there's no way I can take this anymore. All of a sudden it's like, whoa, what just happened?
Yeah.
And then the burn goes away and the endorphins stay. And I remember the first time the first time I got an endorphin dump that way, I got it off of 2 peanuts out of a tube of terror.
Oh, wow.
That was all I did, by the way. I did not get to the 3rd peanut. You guys have seen, if you've ever seen me, you've seen videos where by then I had a tolerance and I had done a little training. But the first time I got to that 2nd peanut and was like, what is wrong with my brother? Like, he does this every day. It didn't make any sense to me. But I remember it was almost uncomfortable how hard that first endorphin dump was. I was like, because I hadn't had any kind of any kind of pain, anything, no painkillers, no nothing for by that point 5.5, 6 years.
Is that similar to like I'm not sure if this relates or not, but when people like lose a hand or an arm and they feel that ghost sensation?
Yeah. Well, that actually that does relate, because it's the same thing, right? When your body creates pain that doesn't exist, right? That is a psychosomatic thing every single time. So people get phantom pains from limbs that have been removed. There's no way you're feeling pain in a foot if there's no pain there. I mean, if there's no foot there, there's no receptors, right? The nerve endings end at the knee. How is it possible that you could be hurting on an appendage that you don't have? And what it is the capabilities of your brain to do some really twisted stuff is not something that people think about often. But with certain drugs, the withdrawal pain. Look, I know a guy that I'm very, very close friends with who he does this number pretty routinely with weed and smokes just mountains of it. And he smokes basically dabs, and he just, because he lives in a legal state, and he gets to a point where he's smoking $100 worth of the crap a day that he's getting at dispensaries. And when he quits, he goes through these 2 weeks where he doesn't eat, he can't sleep. Like, he goes through 2 really rugged weeks. And the first time he told me that, I'm like, man, there's no withdrawals from weed. You know what I mean? Like, I was seriously ready to argue this point with him. But the more research I did, the more I realized that, number one, the weed these guys are smoking now ain't the weed I grew up with, right? You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like I was smoking dirt weed, but even good weed back then was not anything compared to what, people are smoking today. It's like 2 different drugs. It really is. And the amount of it that they're saturating themselves with, because they're not just smoking that, they're smoking extract of that, right? So it's, but I've watched the show. I mean, when the first time he did it in front of me, I was like, you got to be kidding. Like, it looked to me like a guy kicking, Wow. I mean, I'd say, you're not hungry. We're on day 2 here. I haven't seen you eat a damn thing. And, he actually stayed at my house for a period of time while going through the withdrawal sickness, or whatever you want to call it, right? During the time he was quitting. And it'd be 4:00 in the morning. I'd hear him downstairs watching TV. You know what I mean? I'd go down and be like, you didn't sleep a lick last night, did you? No. And this just continued to go on. The good news is, at about 2 weeks, he seems to level out and life gets good again. But the real kick, the thing that you got to really understand is that anytime pain is brought on by something other than trauma, well, then you don't need a painkiller to deal with that pain, right? It just becomes a matter of you messing with the brain back, right? And the way you do that is, to get up and move. If you understand that psychosomatic pain is being brought on by your brain saying, I'm going to make you use, because it really is that simple, right? There's a part of your brain. Niall describes it beautifully as the fight between the part of your brain that wants you to get loaded and the better part of you, the part that said, that's it, I'm quitting. It's not like, we did a couple of different shows, right? Since Mark and I started this, that you're not your brain, right? You're far more than your brain, your consciousness, your thoughts, and all of that stuff. It's far bigger than just the machinations of the human mind. But the human mind does not always want what is best for you. And when you give it dope of any kind for a long period of time, it gets quite accustomed to it. Yeah. Right? It really does. And it gets to a point where when you stop, your brain goes, oh, no, you don't. Yeah. No, we like this. Right? You're going to keep giving me this.
Well, it's kind of like isn't it kind of like the difference between mental addiction and physical addiction?
Well, yeah. When we talk about, absolutely, when we talk about a physical addiction, you're talking about a substance that the body literally becomes dependent on. Right. So if you take alcohol for a long enough period of time, your body becomes dependent on alcohol. And without it, you will go into the DTs. It can actually kill you. If you do opiates long enough, your body becomes dependent on opiates. And if you don't have them, you will get violently sick. That is not psychosomatic, right? That is not your brain. Now, once that passes and you're by, say, day 4 or whatever, and the sickness is over, then the brain will kick in. Because if that sickness didn't get you to use again, your brain will start going, you got this beat, right? Or it'll create more pain. I know people that I watched, especially inside, I watched guys who were miserable for 4 or 5 months. And I mean, at the same time, I'm reading textbooks on this and I'm saying to them, dude, you're not sick, right? Like you haven't been sick since day 6 or 7, worst case scenario. So from that point on, and the problem is that we fall into a routine where we put up with it. You follow me?
Yeah.
You get to a point where you're like, you hang your head and you do this number. You got to get up, you got to get out, and you got to start doing different things, people, places, things. Get away from all of the stuff that you used to do. The more you let your brain look at the same 4 walls, right? The same 6 people, the same activities, your brain's going to go, what are we missing here? Change everything. And your brain will not know what to do. I mean, that really is what it boils down
That's
to.
That's great advice, man. Honestly.
I wish I had come up with it, but I'm just I'm parroting back.
But
it is. No, there's no question. It is smarter minds than us, right? Have researched this stuff, and there really is something to this. When you the worst thing in the entire world you can do when you're really going through it, you really feel like, man, I just can't get clean. Well, you sit on the same couch while you're having that thought. Not only will you not be able to get clean, but you're going to continue to progress in the addiction.
And it kind of falls into that thing that we talk about too. You can only think about one thing at a time. So if you get up and move, your brain can't go there. It has to go somewhere else. So.
Yep. You change the scenery, and your brain all of a sudden is looking at birds and trees. And by the way, I've never a couple of times people in the comment section have said, oh yeah, that is called whatever. I can't remember the name, but it's so-and-so's law, right?
Okay,
of physics, that 2 things can't occupy the same space at the same time.
Yeah.
I've always kind of thought of it as Mark's law, right? Because I don't know whose it really is, but that does seem to make sense to me more anyway.
Isn't it kind of like your brain is trying to convince your brain that it needs something? It's kind of odd like that when it's putting you into what I guess we could even call it fake withdrawal, because that's really kind of what it is. It's your brain trying to convince the other half of his brain to, hey, you're feeling this way. But
Michael Carbone says that marijuana dependency is a real thing. There is no question. There really is no question. And Michael would know. This is sort of that area of expertise that's coming from someone in the field. And I think you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think a lot of it has to do with just how much better they're getting. People, if you take the training wheels off, so to speak. When they allowed states to pass, and I'm not getting into the politics of that.
Right,
this is just sort of factual stuff. But when you allow, the legalization, well, then companies can come out and say, all right, immediately start trying to make the product better. It's a natural
Well, it becomes
occurrence,
socially acceptable at that point. And
Sure. Yeah. And well, and they don't have to
like
worry about
alcohol.
someone kicking the door in, right?
Just like alcohol,
yeah,
kind of.
Absolutely. They don't have to worry about someone kicking in the door.
Yeah, for sure. And it's, we got Jonathan, he's struggling right now a little bit too with some personal issues there he's having with his family. And, I have to say this, I can't remember who's, I think it was Lewis was trying to help give some advice out, and he's going through it. So it's amazing.
You gotta love the lifeboat.
Yeah, oh man, right? I mean, I typed it in there, but it was a few minutes ago, but I couldn't believe it. I mean, that's something that, guys. I mean, that's just complete real life is all that is. That's somebody putting everybody else above themselves, and that's exactly what you've seen right there.
It's a beautiful thing.
It is.
It really is.
It really, yeah, exactly.
Says a lot about the crew of the boat.
Yes.
If it doesn't warm your heart, there's something wrong. There really is something wrong.
I love you guys coming in here and talking. That haven't been here, very many times or what have you, or been here since the beginning, and you're now talking, because it really does give us, all of us, including me and Tommy, a different way to look at addiction. It's always a little different for everybody. And
no doubt.
And it really does push us to look at something in a different direction that might help us. And that's telling you guys, we get more out of this than you guys could ever imagine. We get more than we could ever give. And it's crazy like that. But, it's what it is.
Yeah, see what Michael said too? You're getting teenagers doing vape pens that are 80 to 90% THC.
Yeah.
Whenever I read about stats from the 80s, there are definitely multiple camps in terms of what they claim, but no matter which one you believe, they usually say somewhere in the ballpark of like the low end is 7 to 9 and the high end was like 13 to 14%. So you really are talking about like night and day kind of difference in the potency of what these kids are smoking today. You know what I mean? It ain't dad's weed. You know what I mean? It's a completely different. I
guess the only benefit in my eyes, I'm not sure if you agree with this or not, would be that, in like a legal state, it's regulated. So exactly what your dose is. You buying that stuff off the street, you just simply just don't know.
I'll tell you the thing that sort of along those same lines, you remember when the vape pen, and I don't mean weed, I mean like Juul and those things, where there was that epidemic of like 5 or 6 kids or 7 kids or whatever that all died from smoking those.
Yeah.
Well, if you ever go back and read that now, that those kids were smoking bootleg, marijuana,
nicotine,
vape pens.
And marijuana is all of it.
They were buying THC stuff on the street. So whenever you're in,
no, it's okay.
When you're starting to buy stuff like that on the street, that's the one thing that the legal states do have going for them, is that if they're selling you some kind of a product, then, there's FDA kind of things that they've got to pass, right. Which, granted, it's an addictive substance, but at least it's a safe addictive substance. And,
well, you know what you're getting.
I'm all for safety.
And I wanted to bring this up just real quick, because I know we're at the top, but anybody that has anybody in their life that is dealing with, especially like a heroin addiction or anything like that, even all the other drugs now too, there are tests that you can do for that stuff to see if it's got fentanyl in it. You can actually test it. Now, I haven't done enough research on where to get that kind of a test. I don't know. But I would imagine it's probably different for every state on what you could kind of do there. But just know that that's out there, guys. So if you know somebody that's in heavy addiction and you at least want to halfway keep them safe, they can test their stuff.
And most states now don't have a problem. Believe it or not, the one I live in was one of the last to go.
And remember, don't just test your heroin. I mean, if you're doing something like that, guys, you got to test all of it, even down to the weed. And that's
Michael Carbone was talking about an 8-year-old that eats a couple of the older brother's edible gummies and gets rushed to the hospital.
Yeah.
There was a case, I don't know whether it was last weekend or the weekend before, here in Nevada, and it was I want to say that the toddler was either 2 or 3. and had to go to the hospital for the same thing. Was just
Wow.
eating. I mean, hell, it's a gummy.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? To a kid, that's just
freaking gummy bear,
and
man. Fruit
yeah,
snack.
it's
Fruit snack.
if you're in a legal state, people, please, keep track of whatever you got. Whether that be marijuana pills or anything else.
Treat it just like your
lock and key.
Treat it just like a prescription. Treat it just like that. That's exactly how.
Amen. This stuff that's frightening to me.
It is to me too, man. You hear those kind of ages, it really does scare you a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, but I do appreciate all the stuff in there tonight, guys. You guys really were, I was going to jump in a couple times, but I didn't need to because you guys are handling it in there. And I have to say, even people that are going through it, and again, are helping others going through it right now. Being a week clean off a blow is not easy. And then for that person to offer advice to somebody else just amazes me.
No, that's good stuff.
It really is. But yeah, it's kind of like when Chris apologized. Man, it just floored me.
Yeah, just one of those things that almost takes your breath away. And Brandon, we love you, bud.
Yep.
You know what I mean? We love you. One of these times, brother, it's going to click. It's going to make sense, and it's going to be the last. 100. And in the interim, we're here. We love you. That'll never change. And right at the end of yesterday's show, right as we were getting ready to stop, I saw something from Jonathan Hicks that said, I sent you an email, and it came in under this. My email address is captaintommyscoville@gmail.com. captaintommyscoville@gmail.com.
Charlie,
my bobbleheaded partner would be cool blue 52.
Blue cool 52.
Blue, didn't I say that?
You said cool blue. That's
Blue cool 52.
Yeah.
Please reach out to one of us.
Yes.
You know what, Miss Hermit Hill, Kentucky? I want Jonathan's phone number, but please, for the love of God, don't put it up in the comment section because that would be a bad thing. But I do want it, so that's why I'm giving you right, Captain TommyScoville@gmail.com. You don't need to type anything else, brother. Just send the phone number. That'll work. If that's all you want to do, just send me that. All right, people. We are at the top of the hour. Thank you all. You know what? The shows get better when you guys are the way you are. You know what I mean? When the comment section takes the show over, those are the best shows. To me, that's just when the lifeboat is at its best. So to all of the new people and to all of the old people, but the way you people are opening up, God bless you, man. It really does. I don't know. It's great stuff.
It helps.
Agreed.
It helps more than you guys know. It really does. It helps everybody.
Yeah.
So yes,
yeah, there's no question.
100%.
Yeah, that's the honesty, it's just beautiful stuff. All right, people, we're going to be back tomorrow night, 23 hours from right now. Same bat time, same bat channel. We're going to be doing the same thing. We do it every day.
Yep.
Between now and then, one assignment, right? Reach out and try to save somebody, people. It's what we do. I am Captain Tommy Scoville, and on the other side of the glass,
Mark Wages.
And this is A Cat in a Basket. Good night, everybody. We love you.